Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Ryden. The late Billy Graham was quoted as saying, "A coach will impact more young people in a year than the average person will in a lifetime." Well, if that's true, that puts a heavy burden of responsibility on anyone who chooses to hold the title of coach. Our guest today, Dr. Lowell Wightman, has learned through his own experience as a coach and player the importance of coaching and being coached, and he's written about it in his book, Coach Me Up: Desire for Excellence, providing stories and strategies for desired outcomes. Welcome, Coach Wightman, from just outside Denver.
Yes, sir, Paul. Outside of Denver in the wonderful Rocky Mountain region of the United States. I love the chance to be in winter sports in one moment in the springtime and then go down and golf in the Front Range.
Well,
It's a
you're not
wonderful place to
kidding.
be.
You're not kidding. Well, tell us a little bit about your background as a player first and how that evolved into coaching.
Well, I can't imagine ever being not a player. I grew up with a dad who was a coach and teacher and athlete himself back in his day. And so just part of my life, and I was a farm kid. So activity was a prerequisite to
Yeah.
stay busy and stay engaged and stay out of trouble. And then with that being said, when it got structured and pulled me out of the fields, I played three sports in high school, two sports in college until I realized that, I was also a student athlete.
Hmm.
So I had to study as well. So I
Oh, one
played
of those
baseball,
things.
yeah, I played, yes, one of those things. I played basketball, baseball, and football in high school, and then baseball and basketball in college for a brief moment with baseball until I said, basketball is my love. That's what I want to do. And I would still be able to get my grades
Hmm.
since I was in the sciences, and that was fairly demanding. And then as that kind of evolved, I was seeing friends and fellow athletes of mine going into either professional athletics or professional career in the sciences. And they said, we have questions about stuff. Could you coach us through this? Like how to get business services or how to deal with our family when I'm on the road all the time. And so we found ourselves in a niche together in what I wanted to do in helping people. I've been known to be a people pleaser. So I decided, I needed more education. I needed more insights to beyond the sport,
Hmm.
bring the body and the brain together in its connection and not just be this wonderful physical specimen.
Yeah.
I say that with thoughts of the past.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I wasn't going
Uh,
to say anything, but
yeah. Well, thank you. It's where I'm driven at because coaching is first developed by yourself. You are your best first coach. Now, that means that you might not always have the training you need to be your best first coach, which is why you have other coaches
yeah.
for your position or your employment, your job, whatever the case may be. But it's that foundational component that I capture in the book. Give you theory, give you experiences that I've had personally as well as an instructor and a coach to give you ideas that you can take away and own yourself. Because not everybody has the same mindset about a particular drill or a particular exercise that is fit for them. So I try to customize the approach so that you can take your desire for excellence, unique as it is, and develop it into the disciplines that fit who you are.
Mhm.
Because for example, I was not a disciplined runner. I hated long distance running. I
Welcome to
was
the
a
club.
sprinter. Yeah, I was a sprinter, and that makes sense. Basketball, running down a 90-foot base path, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and so it just wouldn't fit. Well, guess what? Every coach on basketball programs wanted to do in the off season,
Yeah.
run miles and
Oh.
miles, and I went, oh my God, this was just terrible. So I learned from that and saying, look, you gotta make this unique so that people can really relate to it, grab a hold of it, and not just get motivated, but be engaged in motivation that is uniquely their own. And that's why I
Mhm.
wanted to write the book.
Well, one of the things that jumped out to me most about the book is the emphasis on desire and coachability, that physical talent isn't the only recipe for success. How can
Yeah.
you tell who's coachable and who's not?
You bring out your magic wand, watch a lot of Harry
Yeah,
Potter.
exactly. That's where the scouts come in, right? And they don't always
Yeah.
get it right.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, the comments I get from general managers, head coaches, administrators at the college level, and as well at the high school level is why do I need you? I've got 25 years of my gut, my
Yeah.
experience that what I said, you know what? That's fine. Great. Bring that. But let's measure that if we can. Let's measure the desire that uniquely defines that athlete. So you get to speed up how quickly you get to know that athlete and define their level of coachability within that measurement. So we did that. I worked with a colleague of mine, Stephen Reese, who regretfully has since passed away, but he left us with this measurement tool called the RMP assessment, which is about measuring 16 different desire components that is statistically valid. I have the ability to have an 80% probability of predicting human behavior across 16 different factors.
Hmm.
Now, what coach wouldn't want to know about how well a player is going to get after the ball on the football field and get it back so they can score and win a game?
Right.
How much are you going to want to have when you're out there scouting kids, have numbers and values of what drives them, what gets them charged up? But at
Mhm.
the same time, knowing the gaps, knowing what is not enough. And so you can coach to that
Yeah.
and not lose your expectations of them delivering on what they really are good at.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. One thing you brought out in your book was we're often quick to dismiss someone with a bad attitude, but you say in your book that sometimes an apparent bad attitude can really be masking a coachable spirit.
Oh gosh, yeah, you're absolutely right. Right on target. Let me write that down. That's a good quote. But
Right here.
you're right on time with that, because I not only was it identifying that in an individual athlete, but what's the influence of that behavior on his teammates? His or her teammates might be influenced by that. For example, I've seen so many coaches bench that bad attitude,
Mhm.
that aggressive, I can do everything better than anybody else kind of mindset, put it on the bench. It doesn't shut up. It continues to share and share and share on the bench. So the next person you substitute in is a bit diminished because they've been hearing the language on the bench. But if you can know how to relate to that and capture it and guide that young person in interacting, and then with that example by the coaches, the players start to know how to engage that teammate as well, so that you begin to communicate with players. I'm sure you've seen this, or even maybe experienced it yourself, where you've got that one player that believes they're a 3-point shooter, but you don't think that as a
Right.
coach. And then all of a sudden you go, "Oh my God, don't you? Oh, good
Yeah,
shot."
right.
And all of a sudden you've learned, well, we can give them now through training that I've put in the book, measurements to say that player in those situations, maybe not every time they have an open three shot,
Right.
but in these situations is where I know I feel comfortable, and so do they, in
Right.
taking the shot.
But sometimes you have a problem with what you call a player coach who goes out and, the coach has a specific plan. And just like you said in that instance where no, 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 oh yeah, great shot. He wasn't intended to take the shot. How do you handle that kind of player?
Well, because we have the data, Paul, all the players get familiar with that insight, and they get a sharing, that camaraderie, that culture that I also talk about in the book, where coaches need to create a culture where there's an exchange of understanding, a vulnerability owned by every player to say, yeah, you know what? I got a little bit of attitude. Sometimes I'm passionate about this game, and I'm here to ask you to help me with that. Well, that's how we need to get to that place where there's that openness, that vulnerability with each individual player, so that we don't have to discharge the player, trade them, put them on the bench and never to be seen again,
Yeah.
kind of scenario. Because you might not be able to find that same level of passion and energy in the next recruit
Yeah.
that's in that player you currently have. Now, we're not perfect, so there is always the opportunity and chance that that player may not be with the team any longer.
Mhm.
But if we can know it before it happens, we have strategies that we can make a better situation out of a not so good experience.
Now, you talk about mental performance coaching. How do you define that?
Well, for me, it's just simply the connection between mind and body. Your brain has thoughts. You have thoughts that you create with that wonderful muscle in your body to then guide and direct the performance and behavior and actions of all your muscles. Regretfully, sometimes there's a whole bunch of thoughts going on.
Mhm.
and they
Yeah.
conflict with one another. And my right side may not do what the left side wants to do, or vice versa. It's that reality that I take into consideration in measuring and watching, observing, and then adding that experience, that gut feeling that many coaches have shared with me, and put it all together in one really good coalesced plan by individual player so that we can really manage the energy between the brain and the body. And I've now gotten into places where I'm a pre and post surgery advocate and support for an athlete. When we talk, because they're gonna get their body altered. You
Mhm.
know, the brain is thinking, "Oh my God, I've had this injury, I'm gonna have pain and this." That. So we in the extreme case here with this example is that I'm helping them really focus in on, let your brain think about. You know, we use meditation, we use all different kinds of techniques in a purposeful way to make sure that they have a connection both pre-operation and then post for the recovery. Now, in the non-injury case, we're training and teaching that with athletes and teams within their culture about how to have his back, how to have her back, how to be
Mhm.
there for them, because you know through the measuring and the experiences on practice fields what it looks like to have their back. It's no longer just a saying or a phrase. So
Mhm.
those are examples of both in the practice and the competition arenas where we're connecting brain and body, that mental performance coaching. So it's the brain looking at the performance that you want, predicting what that need is, then demonstrating it in real terms in practice.
Mhm.
And I share stories about coaches in scenarios both real and imagined. I've used some theatrical examples through movies that share a lot of those mental mindset kind of. Some are real, some are true story, life based movies that have been created, as well as the ones that are more fantasy. But the theories and the things they talk about are capture. I capture them in the book. Because you can't listen to me all the time. Go watch a movie.
Yeah. Moneyball
So
would be a good start.
yeah, well, and I don't quote Moneyball, but that's a good example of some of the movies that are out there for people to watch. But I want to make sure that people come away from the book with real strategies for themselves to be their own best coach.
Mhm.
Because mental performance coaching is about making the connection to real actions that deliver what you want to own and what you predict are the optimal levels of your performance. Have you ever heard an announcer talk about the intangibles in a
Of
playoff
course.
game or a championship game?
Oh,
Oh
yeah,
my
sure.
gosh, that player came out with just intangible effort.
Mhm.
And I share some of those with my own experience with players. And everybody goes, but where were they during the whole rest of the season? Uh,
Yeah.
you know, why did their intangibles come unlocked in that moment?
Why did they become clutch after the seventh inning?
Yeah, exactly. And part of the results and outcomes that my work has done and what the book captures is giving more consistent and more regular frequency of the intangibles showing up
Mhm.
for everybody. Now, that would be a great resource for a coach to have.
Yeah.
And not only knowing about coachability, but knowing that the coachability results in this plethora of resource and performance capability
Yeah.
that you just know, oh, you need to go in. Well, but he's never been in before. Well, but this is the moment where he needs to go in because
Mhm.
he's the one.
Yeah.
I know that because we've practiced it. And I share a wonderful example with Colorado State University playing in a bowl game with the University of, it was Washington State down in the New Mexico Bowl, where one individual, he wasn't even on the top three players on the roster, and he went in for one play
Hmm.
because he was the only one who practiced the Statue of Liberty play
Really?
before the bowl game.
Yeah.
And he scored the 2 point conversion. He scored it. We tied the game
Mhm.
and went on to win that game. So he's my best example of
Yeah.
utilizing the intangibles and knowing what this young man could do in that moment.
We've kind of talked about this in terms of sports, but this goes beyond sports. How do you measure that same thing in the world of business or the arts?
It's We've got two different assessment tools. One is for sports and one is for business. The arts one would be used. You could use either one depending on the level where the person in the entertainment or or arts area is at in the organization. If it's an executive, I'd go more business. If they're really immersed in the creative delivery of the performance on stage or in front of the camera, I would go more with the sports assessment with them, which we've done. So we've got two different versions of the assessment to measure that issue. But the thing is, the consistency between both is they're all the same 16 factors we're measuring. What's different are the questions we ask because of what they do and what they're trying to deliver as their performance outcomes.
Yeah. Coaching yourself up involves a lot of self-talk, a positive attitude, but we can't necessarily control our circumstances. I remember our daughter's school, when she was going to school, said that instead of preparing the road for our child, we should prepare the child for the road. How do you even do that?
Oh, that's a great question and right on target, because that's again another piece, stated a different way, but another piece of why I was motivated to write this book. I've had so many parents come to me, and I knew before they got to me that they were the helicopter parents.
Right.
But yet, that being said, not implying the negative, but the helicopter parents are just passionate. They want their children to have the best.
Right.
And they've got the means to put them into club sports and all this kind of stuff. Well, but they don't necessarily share with them what the demands are going to be on them off the field or off the court. Oh, guess what? You're going to have to pack your own lunches. You're going to have to make sure your clothes are clean and you're ready to go, because we may not always be there with you. And you're gonna be in some town you've never seen before. How are you going to handle that? That's part of preparing them for the road, and giving your child, or not necessarily a child like in high school, but because every athlete now is a child to me, because I'm old. I'm just really old.
Yeah, right.
So you give them the benefit of the doubt that they can handle this, and share with them. That's the brain part. Share with them. Here's the images that you're going to be facing. We're here for you. We're here when you need us. You call us, or you give us a signal from the court, and we will run to the sideline and support you. But parents tend to want to give their vision as the reason for why the child is in the sport. Take that away from them. Don't let that happen. Let them be in the sport because they want to. And you'll avoid burnout. You'll allow them to make choices that they truly, truly want to own, so that what they think actually manifests itself in the behavior and the twitch of the muscle to get it done.
Well, the book is Coach Me Up, Desire for Excellence, providing stories and strategies for desired outcomes. It's not about hype, it says on Amazon. It's about building habits and turn ambition into achievement. Hey, Dr. Wightman, so good to be with you today, and glad you could join us.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
You bet. And thank you, folks, for joining us and spending a few minutes with us on the Global Book Network. I'm Paul Ryden. We'll see you next time.